For 3 years, I've visited my wife's grave every Tuesday morning without fail. Same white roses, same quiet prayers, same empty bench beneath the oak tree. But last Tuesday, I arrived to find a woman already there, kneeling at Margaret's headstone, her black coat pooled on the autumn leaves, her shoulders shaking with sobs I could hear from 30 feet away. I stopped mid-stride on the stone path, frozen. She didn't notice me. She was too absorbed in the photograph pressed against her chest, a photograph she kept kissing through her tears, a photograph of a face I had never seen before in my life. My name is Arthur Brennan. Margaret was my wife of 47 years. She died in my arms on a Tuesday morning 3 years ago, and I have not missed a single week at her grave since. I thought I knew everything about her, every secret, every scar, every quiet kindness, until that woman looked up, saw me standing frozen on the path, and clutched the photograph tighter against her chest, protecting it from me like I was the intruder. She knew my wife. And whatever bond they shared, Margaret had hidden it from me completely. That was the moment I understood. The woman I buried might not be the woman I married. I stood there on the stone path, white roses still in my hand, watching a stranger weep at my wife's grave like she had lost a part of herself. She did not know who I was, not yet, but the moment our eyes met, I saw recognition flash across her face. Recognition and something else. Fear. She scrambled to her feet, shoving the photograph into her coat pocket. I took a step forward. Who are you? Why are you at my wife's grave? She stumbled backward, one hand braced against the granite headstone. I am sorry. She said it like a plea. I should not have come. Then she was moving fast down the cemetery path toward the parking lot, autumn leaves crunching beneath her black heels. I called after her, wait, but she did not stop. She reached a silver sedan, fumbled with the door, and as she climbed inside, something slipped from her coat and fluttered to the asphalt. I did not realize what it was until her taillights disappeared around the curve and I was standing alone over the object she had dropped, the photograph. I bent down and picked it up. The face staring back at me belonged to a man I had never seen before, mid-40s maybe, dark hair graying at the temples, a slight smile, the kind you give someone you love when you do not know a camera is watching, the kind Margaret used to give me. On the back, someone had written one word in blue ink. The ink was smudged, as if it had been touched by tears. The word was always. I drove home in a fog. The photograph sat on the passenger seat, face up, accusing. My house in Scottsdale was the same as I had left it that morning. The same desert landscaping, the same kitchen where Margaret used to hum while she cooked, the same silence that had lived here for 3 years, ever since the aneurysm took her while she was folding laundry on a Tuesday morning. One moment standing at the dryer, the next gone. I had been the one to find her. I had been the one to hold her hand while the paramedics did their work. I had been the one to plan the funeral, choose the headstone, pick the plot beneath the oak tree at Paradise Memorial. I had been the one to visit every Tuesday for 3 years without fail. And in all that time, through all that grief, I had never once suspected that Margaret might have kept a secret from me. Not one. We had been married 47 years. I met her in 1976 at a diner in Flagstaff. She was waitressing to pay for nursing school. I was a young contractor bidding on a hospital renovation. She spilled coffee on my blueprints, and when she apologized, her cheeks flushed the color of the Arizona sunset. I told her it was the best thing that had ever happened to my blueprints. She laughed. I fell. That was the version of our story I had told 1,000 times. 47 years, 2 children, a daughter, Elaine, who lived in Portland now with her husband and 2 boys. She called on holidays sometimes. A son, Michael, who worked in commercial real estate in Phoenix but rarely visited unless he needed something, money, advice, a signature. Margaret had been the glue. When she died, the glue dissolved. The kids drifted. I learned to live alone. I poured a glass of whiskey and sat at the kitchen table with the photograph in front of me. Always. The woman at the grave had known my name. She had said, "You are Arthur." She told me about you. Margaret had spoken about me to a stranger. But what had she said? And who was this woman? And who was the man in the photograph? This face I had never seen, this face someone had promised always. I did not sleep that night. I sat in my office, going through old albums, searching for any face that matched. Nothing. I opened Margaret's jewelry box. Nothing. I checked the drawer in the hall table where she kept old address books and receipts. Nothing. By 3 in the morning, I had exhausted every obvious place. That left only one. The armoire in our bedroom, the one Margaret had brought from her grandmother's house in Bisbee, the one with the small locked drawer at the bottom that I had never asked about, never pried into, because a marriage of 47 years teaches you that some privacies are sacred. I found the key in the pocket of her winter coat, hanging in the back of the closet, untouched since the January before she died. My hands trembled as I unlocked that drawer. Inside, I found a bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon, 30, maybe 40 envelopes, postmarked from towns I did not recognize, a pressed flower that crumbled when I touched it, a silver locket containing a lock of dark hair, and at the very bottom, a photograph, the same man, the same slight smile, but this one was not alone. In this photograph, he was standing beside Margaret, his arm around her waist, her head resting on his shoulder, both of them younger, much younger, and unmistakably, irrevocably in love. On the back, in Margaret's handwriting, were the words I had already read, always. I sat on the bedroom floor until sunrise, letters unopened, the world I had known for 47 years crumbling into dust around me. The woman I buried was not the woman I married. And somewhere in this house, somewhere in these letters, was the proof. The first letter was dated November 12, 1981. It began, "My darling Margaret, I held our daughter today." I read that line 7 times before I could breathe again. Our daughter. Margaret had a daughter who was not mine. I unfolded the letter fully, hands shaking so badly the paper trembled. The handwriting was masculine, precise, the ink faded but legible. "She has your eyes, Margaret, your mother's eyes. I told her about you, even though she's too young to understand. I told her you loved her. I told her you would come back when you could. I'm still waiting. I'll always wait. Always." At the bottom, a single initial, D. I reached for the next envelope. Dated February 3, 1982. "Margaret, I received your letter. I understand why you can't leave him. You have built a life there, I know. But every day our little girl grows, and every day I see more of you in her face. She asks about you now. I don't know what to tell her. Please, please come back to us." I read through the night, letter after letter, 1983, 1984, 1985. They chronicled years of a relationship I had never known existed. The man, D, was patient, heartbroken, unwavering. He wrote from a small town in southern Oregon, Ashland. He mentioned Margaret's visits, secret meetings that must have occurred when I thought she was visiting her sister in Tucson or attending nursing conferences in California. The letters described hotel rooms and stolen weekends and long phone calls after I had gone to sleep. The daughter grew. In 1986, a letter mentioned her starting junior high. In 1988, a photograph fell from the envelope, a school portrait, a girl of about 14, light brown hair, green eyes. The same eyes I had looked into every morning for 47 years. Margaret's eyes. My wife had another family, a man named Daniel, a daughter named Claire. I learned her name from a letter dated 1992. Claire was graduating high school. Daniel begged Margaret to attend the ceremony. She did. She told me she was visiting a sick friend in Flagstaff. I had driven her to the airport. By dawn, I had read 32 letters. The last one was dated October 4, 2018. A year before Margaret died, it was shorter than the others. "Margaret, the doctors say there's nothing more they can do. I've made arrangements for Claire. She knows everything. She knows about you, about Arthur, about the life you chose. She doesn't blame you. Neither do I. I only wish we had more time. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me our daughter. Wait for me, always." Daniel was dead. Margaret had kept this secret through 47 years of marriage, through the birth of our children, through every anniversary and Christmas and ordinary Tuesday morning. She had a daughter with another man. She had loved him. She had visited him, and I had never suspected a thing. I stood up, legs stiff from hours on the floor. The sun was high now, the room bright. Everything looked the same furniture, the same wedding photograph on the dresser, the same woman smiling beside me in 1977, only that woman was a stranger now, a stranger with a daughter named Claire. The woman at the cemetery, the dark-haired woman kneeling at Margaret's headstone, clutching the photograph of Daniel. Her face had been wet with tears. She had known my name. She had said, "You are Arthur." She told me about you. And she had run from me like I was the one who had been betrayed. Claire, she had to be Claire. I had to find her. The silver sedan. I remembered the make, the model, but not the license plate. I had been too stunned to think clearly. However, the photograph she dropped had been handled. I had handled it. So had she. There might be prints, but I was not a detective. I was a 71-year-old retired contractor whose wife had just been revealed as someone I never knew. Still, I had resources. I had a son who worked in real estate and knew how to trace public records. I hesitated. Michael. The son who rarely visited, who called when he needed money. Could I trust him with this? Did I want to? No, this was mine to uncover. I drove back to Paradise Memorial Cemetery that afternoon. The office was a small stone building near the entrance. A woman at the desk looked up when I entered. She had kind eyes and a nameplate that read Beverly. I introduced myself, explained that I visited my wife's grave every Tuesday, that I had seen another woman there recently, and that I needed to contact her. Beverly was sympathetic but firm. She could not release visitor information without a police request. I understood. But as I turned to leave, she spoke again, softer this time. The woman you're describing, she comes on Thursdays, every Thursday for the past 2 months. She never signs the guest book, but I've seen her from the window. She usually arrives around 10 in the morning. I thanked her. 2 days from now, I would be waiting. Thursday morning, I arrived at 9:30 and parked in the far corner of the lot, where I could see the entrance but remain hidden. At 9:58, the silver sedan pulled through the gates. I watched her step out, a bouquet of yellow roses in one hand, Margaret's favorite color, her favorite flower. She walked slowly toward the gravesite, head bowed. I gave her 10 minutes, then I followed. She was kneeling again, same position, same black coat, same tears. She had placed the roses against the headstone. She was speaking words I could not hear until I drew closer. I'm sorry I ran, I should have stayed, I should have explained, but I was so afraid. You told me he didn't know, you told me he could never know, and I've kept that promise for 3 years. But he was here, Mom, he saw me, he saw the photograph, I think he knows. Mom, the word hit me like a fist. I stepped forward, gravel crunching beneath my shoes. She spun around, face pale, eyes red. You, she whispered. I knew you'd come back. I saw you at the office. Beverly told me you asked about me. I stopped 5 feet from her, the distance between us enormous and nothing at all. Claire, I said, your name is Claire, your father was Daniel, Margaret was your mother, you are my wife's daughter. She did not deny it. She sagged against the headstone, shoulders slumping, as if holding the secret had been physically exhausting, and now, finally, she could let it go. How much do you know? Enough, I said. I found her letters. I know about Daniel. I know about you. What I don't know is why she kept you hidden from me for 47 years, or why you've been coming to her grave every Thursday for 2 months, or why you ran from me when I had every right to stand beside you. She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw Margaret's face in hers, not just the eyes, the shape of the jaw, the way her lips pressed together when she was considering what to say. Because she was afraid, Claire said, afraid that if you knew about me you would leave her. She built her whole life around you, Arthur. You, Elaine, Michael, she couldn't bear to lose that, so she kept me separate. She visited when she could. She sent money, letters, gifts. She loved me. In her own way, she loved me, but I was the price of her other life, the life she chose over me. I never would have left her, I said, surprised to find my voice shaking. Margaret was my everything, if she had told me. Would you have understood? Claire's voice sharpened. She got pregnant a year before she met you. She was 22, unmarried, terrified. Daniel wanted to marry her, but her parents threatened to disown her. So she gave me up. She gave me to Daniel and she walked away. She didn't know how to find me again until I was 11 years old. By then she had you, she had Elaine, she had a whole life. She couldn't just insert me into it, so she did what she thought was best. She loved me from a distance, and I loved her from one too. I sat down on the cold ground beside her, my back against the oak tree, the headstone between us. I've been coming here every Tuesday for 3 years, I said quietly, talking to her, telling her about my day, asking her questions she can't answer, and all this time you were doing the same thing, on Thursdays. Wednesdays at first, she said. I didn't want to risk seeing you. I moved it to Thursdays after a few weeks, but then last Tuesday, she paused. I mixed up the days. I was so upset, I just got in the car and drove. I didn't realize it was Tuesday until I saw your truck. By then it was too late. That explained the photograph. She had been holding it because she always brought it to her visits, a picture of the father she had lost. the mother she had never fully had. Daniel died a year ago, Claire said, as if reading my thoughts. Cancer. He lived long enough to see me married, to meet his granddaughter, but he never stopped loving Margaret, even after she chose you, even after all those years. He kept every letter she ever wrote him. He kept this photograph. She touched the picture still clutched in her hand. I brought it here to show her, to tell her he was gone. I thought maybe now they could be together, wherever they are. We sat in silence for a long time. The autumn sun filtered through the oak leaves, casting shifting patterns on the headstone. Margaret Brennan, beloved wife and mother. The epitaph I had chosen, believing I understood what those words meant. Now I wondered if she had been mother to a child I never knew, wife to a man who was not me, beloved by two families, faithful to neither. But then Claire spoke again, and this time her voice was hesitant, almost guilty. Arthur, there's something else, something you need to know. It's about the last months before she died. The aneurysm wasn't sudden. She knew she was sick. She'd been seeing doctors for months. She kept that from you too, but she told me. She wrote me a letter 6 weeks before she died, saying she'd been diagnosed with a condition that could rupture without warning. She said she was terrified. Not of dying, of leaving things unfinished. There was something she wanted to confess to you, something she planned to tell you the following week. She handed me a folded piece of paper, worn at the creases, clearly read many times. I found this in Daniel's things after he died. She sent it to him 2 weeks before she passed. I think you should read it. I took the letter, my hands steadier now than they had been all day. The handwriting was Margaret's. I would have recognized it anywhere. My dearest Daniel, it began. The doctors have confirmed what I feared. There isn't much time. I've made arrangements for Claire as we discussed. But there's something I've never told you, something I've never told anyone. Not even Arthur, especially not Arthur. If I can find the courage, I plan to tell him on Tuesday, our Tuesday, when he brings the roses. When I can look into his eyes and hold his hand and hope that 47 years of love counts for something when the truth comes out. I've kept a secret from him, Daniel, a secret bigger than Claire, a secret that could destroy everything. I'm going to tell him the truth about the fire. The truth about the fire. Those 5 words sat between us on the cold cemetery ground, heavier than the headstone itself. I looked at Claire. What fire? She shook her head. I don't know, she never told me either. But whatever it was, it terrified her. It was the one thing she could never bring herself to confess. I read the letter again. Margaret's handwriting was steady, not the shaky script of a dying woman, but the careful penmanship of someone who had chosen her words with precision. I'm going to tell him the truth about the fire. She had planned to tell me on a Tuesday, our Tuesday. She had planned to sit me down, hold my hand, and reveal something she considered worse than a secret daughter, worse than a hidden lover. She had died on a Tuesday morning, folding laundry at the dryer, before she ever got the chance. The aneurysm ruptured. The secret remained. What fire? I said again to no one. Claire had no answer. The headstone had no answer. Margaret, wherever she was, had taken the answer with her. I drove home with the letter on my passenger seat, Claire's phone number in my pocket, and a question burning in my mind. I had believed I knew everything about my wife's secret life. The letters, the daughter, the lover in Oregon, but now, beneath all that, another layer, another mystery, a fire. I did not sleep that night either. By morning, I had resolved to find the truth myself. I started with my own memory. 47 years of marriage, fires. Margaret had never spoken of a fire. We had never experienced one together. Our house had never burned. Her nursing career had been unremarkable in that regard. No hospital fires in Flagstaff that I could recall. I called Michael, my son, the one who rarely visited. Dad, he sounded surprised to hear my voice. Is everything okay? I told him I needed a favor. I needed him to search newspaper archives for any fire in Flagstaff between 1975 and 1977, the years before we met. The years Margaret was still Margaret Callahan, a waitress at a diner, pregnant with another man's child. What's this about? Michael asked. His voice had an edge of suspicion. Just something I'm looking into, I said. Your mother's passed. I'll explain later. He did not press. He said he would have results by the weekend. While I waited, I returned to the letters. I had read them all once, searching for Claire, for Daniel. Now I read them again, searching for fire. At first, I found nothing. Then in a letter dated March 19, 1983, I found a passage I had skimmed the first time. Margaret, I know you still carry guilt about what happened. But it was an accident. No one blames you. The man who died had a family, yes, but you cannot spend your life paying for one mistake. You have to forgive yourself. The man who died. I read the line aloud 5 times, 10 times, my voice strange in the empty house. A man had died in a fire, and Margaret had blamed herself. Another letter, September 2nd, 1985. Margaret, the anniversary is always hardest. I know you visit his grave, I know you leave flowers, but you have to stop punishing yourself. You were 21 years old, you were scared. You didn't know what would happen when you lit that match. She lit the match. My wife, the woman I had held every night for 47 years. The woman who hummed while she cooked and cried at sad movies and folded laundry with infinite patience. She had lit a match, and a man had died. I called Michael back. Skip the newspaper archives, I said. I need you to search for a death, a fire death. Flagstaff area, 1974 or 75, a man, it would have been ruled an accident. Silence on the line. Then Michael's voice, quieter now, worried. Dad, what is going on? I could not tell him, not yet. Please just find it. He agreed. He texted me 6 hours later. A single news article, scanned from the Arizona Daily Sun, dated December 8, 1974. The headline read, Local man dies in trailer fire, arson not suspected. The man's name was William Hartley. He was 32 years old. He lived in a trailer on the outskirts of Flagstaff. The fire started around midnight. Neighbors reported hearing an argument earlier in the evening, a man and a woman shouting, but by the time the fire department arrived, the trailer was fully engulfed. William Hartley did not make it out. The investigation concluded the fire was accidental. A space heater tipped over. Case closed. Buried in the article was a single sentence that stopped my heart. Hartley is survived by his wife, Rosemary, and a young son who were not present at the time of the fire. And 2 paragraphs later, a witness reported seeing a young woman leaving the property shortly before flames were visible. She has not been identified. A young woman leaving the property, Margaret. I called Claire and read her the article. She listened in silence. When I finished, she exhaled a long, shaky breath. She was 21, Claire said. She was pregnant with me. She was terrified. Daniel told me once that something terrible had happened to her before I was born, something that changed her, but he never said what. I thought about the timeline. December 1974, Claire would have been conceived around March of that year. Margaret would have been pregnant, showing perhaps desperate, and William Hartley, who was he to her? The article did not say, the investigation did not ask. It was a trailer fire, accidental, closed. I needed to know more. I drove to Flagstaff the next morning, 3 hours north, through the mountains, past the diner where I had met Margaret in 1976. The diner was still there, now a tourist spot with vintage signage and overpriced coffee. I did not stop. I went to the county records office and requested the file on William Hartley's death. It took an hour for the clerk to locate it in the basement archives. When she handed me the box, she said, "You're the second person this year to request this file." I froze. Who was the first? A woman, older, about your age. She came in back in March, spent 3 hours with the file, left without making copies. March, Claire had said she started visiting Margaret's grave in August, but this woman had been here in March, a different woman entirely. Do you remember her name? The clerk checked the sign-in log. Rosemary Hartley, she said, William Hartley's widow. After 50 years, she was still searching for answers about the night her husband died. I opened the file. The photographs were worse than I had imagined. The trailer was a blackened shell. The coroner's report noted that Hartley had suffered smoke inhalation before the burns. He had been alive when the fire started, disoriented perhaps, unable to escape. The witness statement was brief, handwritten, signed by a neighbor named Geraldine Foster. I saw a girl leaving the property around 11:45. She was young, dark hair, tall. She was crying. I asked if everything was okay. She said she had been visiting a friend and got lost. I didn't think anything of it until the sirens. The girl was never identified. Margaret was never questioned. She had vanished into the night, and a man had died behind her. But it was the medical examiner's addendum that shattered everything. Dated 2 weeks after the initial report, it noted something unusual in the autopsy. Subject exhibited blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, inconsistent with fire damage. Trauma likely occurred prior to death. Recommend further investigation. Further investigation never happened. The case remained closed. William Hartley had not simply died in a fire, he had been struck on the head before the fire started. The match Margaret lit was not the beginning of the story. Something else had happened in that trailer, something she had carried to her grave. I sat in the county records office, the file spread before me, and tried to piece together the woman I had married. At 21, she was pregnant by a man named Daniel. She was working as a waitress, living alone, estranged from her parents. She had some connection to William Hartley, a married man 32 with a wife and child. An argument was heard, a blow to the head, a fire, and Margaret Callahan running through the December cold, telling a neighbor she was lost. What had happened in that trailer? Had Margaret struck Hartley in self-defense? Had someone else been there? Had the fire been meant to cover the evidence? Or had she simply been a witness, fleeing from something she could not prevent and could never confess? I did not have answers, but I knew someone who might. Rosemary Hartley, the widow. The woman who had come to this same office in March, 50 years after her husband's death, still searching. She was alive. And she had been looking for the truth, just as I was. I found Rosemary Hartley in a retirement community on the edge of Flagstaff, a small apartment with a view of the mountains. She opened the door cautiously, a woman in her late 70s, silver hair, sharp eyes. "Mrs. Hartley," I said, "my name is Arthur Brennan. My wife was Margaret Callahan. I believe she knew your husband." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stepped back, opened the door wider. "I've been waiting 50 years for someone to say that name," she said. "Come in." Her apartment was neat, quiet. Photographs of her son, grown now with children of his own, lined the shelves. She offered me tea. I accepted. We sat across from each other at a small kitchen table. "I went to the records office," I said. "I saw the file. I saw your husband's autopsy report. I know there was blunt force trauma. I know the fire was not an accident." She nodded slowly. "I've known that for 50 years, but the police wouldn't listen. The case was closed." "Accidental fire," they said. "Space heater. Case closed." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled around her teacup. "I knew William. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He didn't leave space heaters on, and he didn't die by accident." "Did you know Margaret?" I asked. "Did you know her connection to your husband?" She set down her cup. "Margaret Callahan. She worked at the diner where William ate lunch every Thursday. He was a contractor. He hired her to do some bookkeeping on the side. I didn't know about her until after he died. I found her name in his ledger. Payments to MC. I tracked her down years later. She was married by then to you. She had children, a whole life. I confronted her." She paused, her eyes distant. She cried. She told me she was sorry. She said she had been there that night, but she would not tell me what happened. She said she was afraid for her daughter, afraid for herself. She begged me not to tell anyone. She said that if the truth came out, it would destroy everything. Claire, she had been afraid for Claire. At 21, pregnant, alone, something terrible had happened in that trailer. And whatever it was, Margaret believed revealing it would cost her the life she was building, the life she built with me. "Mrs. Hartley," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "why were you at the records office in March? What changed after 50 years? She looked at me with eyes that had held grief for half a century. "Because I'm dying, Mr. Brennan. Cancer. I have maybe 6 months. And before I go, I wanted to know the truth about what happened to my husband. I wanted to know if your wife killed him." The question hung in the air between us, unanswerable, unbearable. Margaret had taken the truth to her grave. But as I sat in Rosemary Hartley's kitchen, I realized the truth was not entirely lost. There was one person who might know more, one person who had been there in the background, connected to every part of this story. Daniel, Claire's father, the man who had loved Margaret for decades, who had written her letters until his death. He had known about the fire. He had written to Margaret about it years afterward, urging her to forgive herself. He had known what happened, and he was dead. But his daughter, our daughter, Margaret's daughter, might hold the key I had overlooked. I called Claire from the parking lot outside Rosemary's apartment. "I need to see Daniel's letters," I said. "Not the ones Margaret wrote to him, the ones he wrote to her, the ones you said he kept. I need to read them all." There was a long pause, then Claire's voice, uncertain. "There's one letter I didn't show you. I wasn't sure if I should. It's not from Daniel, it's from someone else. Someone named Geraldine Foster." Geraldine Foster, the neighbor, the witness, the woman who saw Margaret running from the trailer that night. Her name had been in the file. "She's still alive?" I asked. "She was," Claire said. "She wrote to Daniel in 1996. She wanted to find Margaret. She said she had been lying for over 20 years. She said she knew more than she told the police. She said she wanted to clear her conscience before she died. My heart pounded. Where is that letter now? In Ashland, Claire said. In Daniel's storage unit. I never went through everything. I just took the letters from Margaret and left the rest. But if you want to go there, I do, I said. Tomorrow. Ashland, Oregon, 4 hours north of Flagstaff. The town where Daniel had lived, where he had raised Claire, where he had died. The town where the final answers waited, buried in a storage unit, sealed in letters that had never been read by anyone but the dead. Claire met me at the storage facility in Ashland the next afternoon. She had never been through all of Daniel's things, just the letters from Margaret, the photographs she recognized. The rest had sat untouched in a 10 by 10 unit for over a year, waiting for a reason. I was that reason now. The unit smelled of old paper and cedar. Boxes stacked against the walls, labeled in Daniel's neat handwriting. Taxes 1994, Claire's schoolwork, Margaret letters. That last box was the one we opened first. Inside, bundled by year, were the letters Margaret had written him over 4 decades. I had not known about those. I had found the letters he wrote to her in her locked armoire. But these were her words to him. I asked Claire if I could read them. She nodded and stepped outside to give me privacy, saying she would wait in the car. I think she understood that some griefs are meant to be witnessed alone. Margaret's letters to Daniel were different from the ones he had written her. His were full of longing, patience, pain. Hers were full of apology. She wrote about her guilt, about the lie she lived, about how every Tuesday when I brought her roses and held her hand, she wanted to tell me the truth. She wrote about the fire, not directly at first. In 1982, she wrote, I still dream about that night, the smoke, the sound of his voice. I wake up and for a moment I think I'm still there, running through the dark, my hands shaking so badly I can barely open the car door. I left him, Daniel. I left him and I never looked back. What kind of person does that make me? I read those lines with my heart in my throat. She had left a dying man. But the question was, had she killed him? The answer came in a letter dated April 14, 1996. She was responding to something Daniel had written, clearly about the witness, Geraldine Foster. Daniel, when you told me that the neighbor had been lying all these years, I felt like the ground opened beneath me. She saw more than she admitted. She saw someone else. After all this time, I've believed I was responsible. I knocked over the lantern when he grabbed me. I pushed him. He fell. I ran. I thought the fire started because of what I did. But if she saw someone else go into that trailer after I left, if she saw someone who actually set the fire, then I've been carrying a weight that wasn't mine to carry. I stopped reading. She had not started the fire. She had been attacked. She defended herself. And the fire that killed William Hartley, was set by someone else. The Geraldine Foster letter was in a separate envelope at the bottom of the box. I opened it with careful hands. It was dated October 3, 1996. Dear Mr. Callahan, it began. She had known Daniel's name but not his full identity. My name is Geraldine Foster. I was a neighbor of William Hartley in Flagstaff in 1974. I spoke to the police after the fire. I told them I saw a young woman leaving the property. I did not tell them everything. I have been lying for 22 years, and I cannot die with this on my conscience. The woman I saw was not the only person I saw. After she ran to her car, I saw a man walk up to the trailer. He opened the door. He went inside. A few minutes later, he came out. Shortly after that, the fire started. I did not know who he was then, but I later recognized his photograph in the newspaper. His name was Leonard Bryce. He was William Hartley's business partner. He was convicted of fraud in 1980 for embezzling from their company. I believe he killed William and set the fire to cover his crime. I stayed silent because I was afraid. I'm an old woman now. I am sending this letter to you because you were the father of the girl's child. I remembered her mentioning a Daniel once. I hope this reaches you. I hope it brings her peace. She did not kill anyone. She was just a frightened girl running from a terrible night. Leonard Bryce. I pulled out my phone and searched the name. The results came instantly. Convicted of fraud, embezzlement, served 8 years in federal prison, died in 2003 of a heart attack. He had never been charged with Hartley's death. The case remained closed, an accident, a tipped space heater. But Geraldine Foster had known the truth for 22 years before she spoke it. And Margaret had learned the truth in 1996, after 18 years of believing she was responsible for a man's death. The guilt had shaped her entire life. It had shaped how she loved me, how she loved Claire, how she kept secrets that should never have been secrets at all. She married me believing she was a fugitive from justice, that she had killed someone. She kept Claire hidden because she was terrified that if anyone looked too closely at Margaret Callahan, they would find the fire. And then, when the truth finally reached her, she had already built a life on that fear. She did not know how to tear it down. I closed the box and sat on the concrete floor of the storage unit, the letter in my lap, and I wept. For Margaret, for the frightened 21-year-old who ran through the dark, for the woman who spent 18 years believing she was a killer, for the wife who could never tell me the truth because she had already told me 1,000 lies to cover it, and for myself, for the man who had visited a grave every Tuesday for 3 years, mourning a woman he never fully knew. Claire came back inside after a while. She sat beside me on the floor and I handed her the letter. She read it in silence. When she finished, she took my hand. She was not a monster, Claire said. She was just a girl who made a mistake and spent the rest of her life trying to be good enough to make up for it. That single sentence reframed everything. The wife I thought I knew was not a stranger at all. She was the same woman who hummed while she cooked, who folded laundry with infinite patience, who loved me for 47 years. She just carried a burden I had never seen, and now, at last, I could help her set it down. I drove back to Arizona alone. Claire stayed in Ashland to finish sorting Daniel's things. We promised to meet again at the cemetery on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, whenever we needed to. I had lost a wife but gained a daughter. That was not nothing. My first stop when I returned was Rosemary Hartley's apartment. She opened the door, her sharp eyes searching my face. "You found something?" she said. I handed her a copy of Geraldine's letter. She read it standing in the doorway. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes for the first time. 50 years, she whispered. 50 years I blamed the wrong person. Your wife. I thought she seduced my William, then killed him when things went wrong. But she was just a kid. A pregnant kid trying to escape. She folded the letter carefully. Does this Leonard Bryce have any living family? A son, I told her, living in Tucson, never charged. She nodded slowly. Then maybe there's still some justice to be found, even if it's just the truth on a police report, even if it's just his son knowing what his father was. I left her with the letter and a promise to testify to whatever she needed. After 50 years, the case of William Hartley's death might finally be reopened. Not for punishment, the guilty man was dead, but for truth, for the record, for Margaret's name. That evening I drove to Paradise Memorial. The sun was setting over the desert hills, painting the headstones gold. I walked the familiar path to Margaret's grave, the oak tree, the granite marker. I knelt and placed a bouquet of yellow roses against the stone. I know, I said aloud. I know about the fire. I know about the man who really killed William Hartley. I know you were innocent. I know you carried guilt that wasn't yours. I know about Claire. I know about Daniel. I know about all of it. The silence of the cemetery wrapped around me, but it was not empty silence. It was full of everything I had ever felt for her and everything I felt now. Love, grief, anger, forgiveness, sorrow, peace. I understand why you couldn't tell me, I continued. I understand the fear, I understand the shame. But Margaret, if you were here now, I would tell you the same thing I told you on our wedding day. There is nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you. I meant it then, I mean it now. I stayed until the stars came out. The Tuesday visits would continue, but they would be different now. I was no longer mourning a woman I thought I knew. I was remembering a woman I finally understood. A month later, a small ceremony took place at Margaret's grave. Claire stood on one side of me, Rosemary Hartley on the other. A detective from the Flagstaff Cold Case Unit had reviewed the file, interviewed Geraldine Foster, still alive, at 91 in a nursing home, and officially amended the death certificate. William Hartley's manner of death was changed from accidental to homicide. The perpetrator was named as Leonard Bryce, deceased. Margaret Callahan was cleared of all suspicion. The local paper ran a small article. I clipped it and placed it in the armoire with Margaret's letters. It belonged there with the rest of her secrets. Claire and I have our own routine now. She visits on Tuesdays sometimes, and I join her on Thursdays. We bring yellow roses. We sit beneath the oak tree and talk about ordinary things, her daughter, my grandchildren, the house in Scottsdale, the diner in Flagstaff that still serves the same coffee Margaret spilled on my blueprints 47 years ago. We talk about Margaret too, not as a saint or a sinner, but as a woman who was brave and afraid at the same time. A woman who loved deeply and imperfectly. A woman who kept secrets she should not have kept and carried guilt she did not deserve. A woman who in the end was trying to tell me the truth. I found a note in her jewelry box a week after the ceremony, tucked behind a photograph of our wedding day. In her handwriting, unfinished, unsent, "My dearest Arthur, there is something I need to tell you. I have been carrying a secret for longer than I have known you. I hope when you hear it, you will still see the woman you married and not the girl who ran through the dark." The note ended there. She never finished it, but she had started it. That was enough. I am 71 years old now. I have learned that love is not the absence of secrets. It is the choice to stay, to forgive, to understand. I did not know everything about my wife, but I knew her heart, and in the end, that was the only truth that mattered. The experts will tell you that grief is a linear process: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But what they do not tell you is what happens when the person you are grieving turns out to be someone you never fully knew. There is no stage for that, no script, no roadmap. You are simply left standing in a cemetery with white roses in your hand and a photograph you have never seen before, wondering how love and secrecy can occupy the same heart for 47 years. I have thought a great deal about that question in the months since I learned the truth about Margaret, and I have come to understand something that I wish I had known earlier. The secrets people keep are rarely about the people they keep them from. They are about fear, shame, survival. Margaret did not hide Claire from me because she did not love me. She hid Claire because she was terrified of losing the life she had built. She did not stay silent about the fire because she was guilty. She stayed silent because she believed she was. Guilt and innocence are not always as clear as we want them to be. Sometimes the people we love carry burdens we cannot see, and they carry them alone because they do not know how to set them down. I am not the only person who has stood at a grave and discovered a stranger. Grief counselors say this is one of the most common experiences among the bereaved, that in the aftermath of death, secrets surface like stones emerging from receding water. A hidden debt, a lost child, an affair, a crime, and the survivors are left to reconcile two versions of the same person, the one they knew and the one they are only beginning to understand. Our society has no ritual for that, no ceremony. No closure. We are expected to mourn the dead as if they were exactly who we believed them to be. But the dead are not monuments. They are people. Complicated, flawed, frightened people who made choices they could not always explain. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let them be both. The person who lied to us and the person who loved us. The girl who ran through the dark and the woman who folded laundry with infinite patience. Margaret was both. And I have made peace with that. Every Tuesday I still visit her grave. I bring yellow roses, now her favorite. Sometimes Claire comes with me. Sometimes Rosemary Hartley joins us, and we sit beneath the oak tree and talk about William, about the case that finally told the truth, about the years we all lost to secrets that should never have been kept. The cemetery is no longer a place of solitary mourning. It is a place of connection, of reconciliation, of truth. The headstone still reads, "Beloved wife and mother." And I understand now that those words are larger than I ever knew. She was a wife to me, yes, and a mother to Claire, and a beloved to Daniel, and a frightened girl to Rosemary, and a mystery to the world. But to all of us, in the end, she was human, and that is enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I would like to hear what you would have done, standing in that cemetery, holding those roses, looking at a photograph of a face you had never seen. Would you have chased the truth, or would you have let it rest with the dead? Let me know. And to hear the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching, because sometimes the truth does not destroy us. Sometimes it sets us free.